All right, good afternoon. The August 12th, 2025 work session is now in order. Paul, roll call, please.
Mr. Trent?
Here.
Mr. Susan?
Here.
Ms. Wright?
Here.
Ms. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Rendell, can you please speak to the board about the items on the agenda today?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On today's agenda, we have a first public hearing and rule development on policy revisions and some following topics or presentations. First, rule development public hearing 1 on policy 2260.02, policy 5136, 5517, and 5517.01. We were going to have a review of the policy 3121, criminal background and employment history checks, but I've been informed we have some language to clean up on that, so we're going to skip that one today, push that on to a future one. We also were going to review the administrative procedures that have been developed for policy 0165. That was the invocation policy. Mr. Thomas has asked that we table that, so we're going to table that for now and come back to that at a future date. So we won't be reviewing those procedures today. Then we will have a presentation by Sue Han on some project funding options and a whole bunch of other stuff, rather long presentation on a lot of good stuff. And then at some point we'll break for you guys to do the general counsel evaluation.
Are we pulling policy 0165 off the meeting tonight?
Yeah, so we will pull that at the dais tonight.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, first up, board policy review and rule development on the following policies. Policy 2260-02. Is there anyone present who wishes to address this item? Is there anyone present to address this item? Okay, there being none. Policy 5136, is there anyone present that wishes to address this item? Is there anyone present that wishes to address this item? Policy 5517, is there anyone present who wishes to address this item? Is there anyone present who wishes to address this item? Policy 5517-01, is there anyone present who wishes to address this item? Is there anyone present who wishes to address this item? Okay.
All right, so Mr. Chair, we're going to skip the board review of 3121.01 because we got some work to clean up on some language there. We're going to skip the review of the administrative procedures for 0165. So the next thing we have on our agenda is the presentation by Sue Han and her team. So we'll give her a few minutes to get set up.
Okay, one second.
While she's doing that, because this is the first hearing for 5136 wireless communication devices, I'll reserve any other comments for tonight. But board, if you haven't looked at your email yesterday and today, we're getting quite a bit of feedback on this. I just realized that I missed a bunch of voicemails because my phone, I had to restart my phone, and they all came pouring through. So make sure that you take the time to at least survey the input that we're getting over the last few days now that we're back in school and parents are being made aware of the change.
Yeah.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So thank you for that, very encouraging introduction. So hopefully it won't be too long. So thanks everybody for the time to present this afternoon. We've got several topics that are kind of interrelated, and so this kind of started off as a conversation around some of our upcoming capacity improvement projects, and then realized it sort of melted into some of the other considerations regarding our capital plan and our Surtax plan development. So I wanted to kind of brief you on all of this together so you all can see sort of the big picture regarding the facilities funding for our current projects and some projects moving forward. So let's see. So the first thing is that we have several sources of funding for our facilities work. And you see at the bottom, we have the educational impact fees. Those are only able to be used for capacity improvement projects. So they have to be used when we are adding student stations. So that funding source is going to be the backstop for the separate day school, Westside Elementary Classroom Edition, Bayside High School Classroom Edition, and the Sunrise Elementary K-8 conversion and classroom edition. And then we have the sales surtax, which is in effect through December of 2026. And those fund renewal projects in facilities as well as educational technology and security. And then in the middle, we have the capital funding. That's the 1.5 mils property tax that we use for a variety of purposes, and that has some overlap with the operating budget. So in the overlap arena, there are eligible salaries, and basically it's salaries for personnel that support eligible activities under the capital program. And so we have traditionally funded maintenance salaries and maintenance operations out of the capital fund, but it is also eligible to be used for things like bus drivers, bus mechanics, and some technology folks who work on the projects and programs that are funded out of capital. It's also used for debt service, insurance, and to cover certain enterprise licenses that are allowed under the statute. So all of these things kind of interact, and you can adjust your funding based on where you have resources and where you need resources. So that's really what this story is going to be about today as I continue through the presentation. So to start off the conversation today, Ms. Lisinski and I have been working together on this for quite some time to try to make sure that she is solid. She's working on the general fund side of the budget and the budget preparation that you all have seen, and is trying to deal with the challenges of uncertain funding from the state and federal government. So she's working that side. And in the meantime, I'm kind of working the capital side to try to figure out our ongoing project funding. And we got to looking at resources we had available, and it turns out we have some resources in a little bit in 24, but primarily in 25 capital fund that we could actually use to move salary expenses in FY25 to those resources without really impacting any project proposals in FY26. So we looked at a couple different options, and that seemed to be the best option in that it shores up the general fund balance in FY25, and it also allows us to have a relatively complete program of capital projects in FY26. So we're looking at this as a one-time opportunity, and we can absorb it this time, but it is not something that we propose moving forward in FY26. So in FY26, you'll see the capital plan that is kind of the traditional view of how we expend our capital resources, and does not include the salaries for bus drivers, maintenance, or bus drivers, bus mechanics, and educational technology folks. It does include the maintenance salaries because we've traditionally used the maintenance salaries from that pool of money. So in prior years, 24, 25, as I say, we're going to propose to move FY25 eligible salaries into the capital fund from the general fund. And so it raises the FY25 fund balance and improves our financial status for potential financing. Also, we have sufficient money in FY25 that we can take some of the proposed FY26 projects and actually use 25 money. So that frees up money in 26. And those projects are White Fleet work truck renewal and classroom renewal projects. We also have program design funds for the new West Side bus compound facility, and probably will pick up some pre-construction services in that amount as well. And then we estimate about $3 million left to mitigate uncertainty. So we're not spending, and we're not proposing to program all of the resources. We do want to make sure that we can handle any uncertainty that comes up in the future. So that's the prior year's work. And then to move on to the 26 capital plan, we are proposing to use the capital revenue more or less similarly to what we've done in the past. So we'll be paying for debt service and property insurance. We do have a charter commitment, and that share, the charter share, is on a glide path. The Florida legislature set up a glide path that was a 5-year path, and we're in, I think, year 3 of that. So doing the math, it's going up a little bit, and it will continue to go up for the next couple of years. But our capital revenue is also going up as our property values go up. So in FY26, just to be explicit, it does not include salary transfers for those categories of employees, bus drivers, bus mechanics, and ET technicians. But generally speaking, the 26 capital program is stable and similar to prior years. So the next several slides just kind of show you the myriad of things that are included with our capital program. And these are more or less annual funding requests that we use our capital resources for, and that includes things like school bus renewal, our FF&E, our district-wide enterprise system, cybersecurity. We have a couple of capital funded positions. One is in athletics that has been super impactful in making our work for capital projects relating to athletics a lot more effective. And then also bringing on 2 technicians in the ET world to maintain some of our security technology, and those can be funded with capital. So those are included in the program. We also have our typical grounds maintenance and custodial equipment. Some of that is for our team, some of that goes out to the schools. ET infrastructure is a regular item on our capital plan. And then we have a number of facilities ongoing projects, including ADA. We have our school-initiated project match program. That's always really something cool that we do with the schools, and they've done some good work with that. We do student restroom renovations. We've been slowly working our way through converting mulch fall surface under playgrounds to rubberized tiles. That's been pretty well received by the schools and the communities, and we feel like that's a good improvement. We've been working our way through beach volleyball programs at our high schools, slowly getting through some parking lot renewal. This year, I've added boiler renewal and elevator renewal because we're starting to see demand for that type of renewal coming up more frequently, and so we want to get ahead of that. We're looking at our structural pavilions, both renewal, I think you have one on your agenda this evening, and then some of our elementary schools still do not have a large covered play pavilion, so that's part of this proposal as well. Last year, we started working on sidewalk and walkway renewal, trip hazards, and things like that. And you see, sidewalks that are differentially settling at our schools, and we want to try to get ahead of that also. We're doing a continuation of the interior refreshment at ESF. Some of our furniture was original with the building, and feel like we need to start moving that in a good direction. Our elementary outdoor basketball courts, we have a number of schools where those are in poor condition, and we're working slowly to bring those up to speed. Secondary locker room renewal have made good progress in that arena. We've just started the stadium lighting conversions to LED, and we're very hopeful that that project, that is our pilot project at Cocoa High School, will be completed literally tomorrow afternoon in time for the Thursday game at Cocoa High School. So they're this close to being done. And then we also do support for career and tech ed programs. So as Ms. Rutledge is doing some new programs in our schools, she sometimes needs electrical support or other facility renewal type work, and we support that. A very impactful project that we've had over the past couple of years, relatively new, is athletics FF&E. Mr. Robinson works with our team, and that has been huge because we're able to replace small assets, things like scoreboards when they break, or our wrestling mats are really nasty and we need new wrestling mats, or our weight room is falling apart and dangerous. This has given us a pool of resources that we can use to address those issues quickly. And his project field coordinator, she is the one who assesses the conditions and who meets with the school-based people and decides, like, this goes first, this goes second. And this has been a really good improvement and collaboration between the chief of schools department and my department. So really proud of that investment. You will also see on your agenda tonight the Creel and Oak Park therapy pool decommissioning. It sounds like a little project, but this is a big monster room with a big monster pool in it, and we need to get those out. So those are proposed for a little additional funding in 26. Similarly, Titusville High Baseball, that will be complete in 26. And the picture on the screen, that is the example of the new restroom that we're installing at Westside Elementary to support the classroom additions, the portable classrooms. And we're also going to use that at some of our high schools to support their stadium restroom needs. So we've got a project in the FY26 plan to do a few of these to try to test that versus what has been traditionally been either no restroom or restroom in a portable that is not really, they're reaching the end of their useful life, let me just say that. And then we have a few smaller one-time projects that have come from procurement and transportation. The things that are not in the 26 plan are the couple things that we have funded with 25 funds. We had initially looked at some track projects at a couple middle schools and what to do at Edgewood and West Shore where there are no tracks per se, and we're not able to fund construction of those at this time, but we're still kind of working through looking at some design and concepts with those schools. The bus facility construction has been deferred, but we really need to get our arms wrapped around what we're designing first, so we do have money for the design of that facility. And then I had initially had some turf field design in the program. It was a pretty minor amount, and as we move forward with looking at the sales tax plan, if we need to stand up some design, I think we'll be able to cover that with some of the resources that I have. So that's kind of the relatively brief summary of the projects that are in the capital program. The next slides just simply show the summary of these projects and the amount to each of the projects in the plan. And so the total amount of revenue is estimated to be about $115 million. That is based on a 96% collection rate. So we have a little bit of balance left over just programming off the top, but expect that the total pool of revenue from this source will be a little bit more than what I'm showing here that we haven't accounted for yet. So from a policy perspective, just to reiterate that what happened on the operating side of the budget with the state and federal funding issues impacted the potential allocation of capital resources. And just on a broad-based approach, we kind of looked at, okay, if we had to do this every year, what would that mean? And what that means is about 21 million would come out of the capital plan, and that long list of relatively small continuing projects would be very, very small. So we would still fund things like the bus renewal and our technology renewal are very critical needs, but all of the things like locker room renewal and volleyball and things like that, we would not be able to fund. So we wanted to try to put together an approach that addressed what was happening in FY25, but still keep the FY26 program stable. But Cindy and I will need to work very closely together as we look at the 26 budget and development of the 27 budget to make sure that we're supporting each other and that we're balancing those two somewhat competing resources to best serve our schools. So that concludes the conversation around capital, and just wanted to pause and see if there's any feedback, as this is more or less what we're moving forward with and the numbers that will be in the budget that Cindy puts together for September 9th.
Board, questions?
Just clarifying, you are going to touch on the Stone University Park.
I'll get there
During
on,
your
I don't know,
presentation.
slide 47 or something, yes.
Just want to make sure we're getting there.
No, we're good.
So we had this conversation similar, introducing this concept a few meetings ago when we were at Vera Middle, and so I think this approach of basically doing, just to clarify, for me, I have to wrap my brain around it. We're doing a backwards revision to the fiscal year that we just finished, and saying, we had a reduction in funding due to the state shortfall because of the scholarships and also reduced enrollment, and so we're looking at leftover money, unclaimed money. Right? We had a plan for it, but we changed.
I'm happy to claim it, but
I know. And doing that backwards looking.
Yep.
I think, and I know Ms. Wright expressed a concern about the ability to do it. I didn't have a problem with our legal ability to do it, but I didn't think it was wise to do that in the year coming up and then to try to move it out. But backwards looking, yes, to shore us up. That what's the fund balance, but also what's the word I'm looking for, Cindy? Fund ratio. The financial condition ratio is so important, and if we're going to, as we move forward and we start talking about doing a line of credit for a future building, that number has got to be great. So many districts around the state have really had to dip into that fund balance, and if we can do what you're proposing, I'm all for it. I think that's a wise use of that, and then we can move forward, we can take a different approach. But I think doing this backwards revision that we have the ability to do is probably the best way. So and always, I just have to say, when I look at a list this long of things that we're doing to make our schools better and to serve families and students and the teachers who work in them better, this makes me excited, because this means we're doing good work with what we're giving and given, and every single year we can look and see, and some things we can't see because they're in the walls, but we are improving our facilities every single year, and not playing catch up. We're playing forward-looking progress on our facilities. So thank you for doing this. I think this is great.
Thanks.
I'll just echo the sentiments of I appreciate the. There we go. I will echo the sentiments that I appreciate the one-on-one meeting to go really deep dive into all this and spending a little more time. It's a lot. It's a lot to go through. I don't love the plan necessarily, but I understand the necessity for it. One of the frustrations I think that districts all around the state are feeling, we don't have our fourth calc yet. Like, we're trying to close out budgets from last year, and we can't do that until we get those numbers. And so it's put us all in a really bad predicament. And so trying to move forward and plan accordingly, we're kind of having to pivot and shift. And I appreciate your willingness to jump in there, your department specifically, because this is a huge ask. And so thank you for being the one that says, I'll do it, I can do it, and we can find a way. So we appreciate you.
Thanks.
I think they said everything eloquently, and I have nothing further to say.
So can we mark that down? Do we record that?
Write the date down.
Yeah. No, same thing. Very good. All good.
Okay.
We had this, people out there, we had these one-on-ones yesterday. We went through this and asked you all the questions. So we're very pleased on the approach that you're taking with this.
Thanks. Well, it really is a partnership. Our finance department, I've been working with Ms. Lisinski and Mr. Miller. We've spent a lot of quality time together, making sure that all of our assumptions on either side of the fence are compatible. And we both feel very confident this is good, correct, our numbers are good, and feel really good moving forward. So thanks.
Great.
Okay, so the next chunk is the discussion of the part of the strategic facilities plan relating to classroom additions. And so we have 4 projects on deck. The first one is the separate day school. This was proposed for construction at the campus of Kennedy Middle School. We're well into the process, and we anticipate having an early works GMP at your September 9th board meeting, and then the full GMP at the October 14th school board meeting. About a 14-month construction schedule. We don't have that fully vetted yet, but somewhere in that range. This one is funded at this moment through North Area Educational Impact Fees. And the rate of collection from the North Area Educational Impact Fees is somewhere in the $750,000 to $900,000 per quarter type range. So it's a little slower rate than what we are seeing in the South. So in this particular case, we have about $7 million that has been saved for this project, and the estimated cost is about $22 million. So in looking at the award of the contract and then the potential cadence of expenditures, the construction payouts versus the impact fee revenue, we do think in this case we will need some short-term financing. So similar approach as to what we did at Vieira Middle School, where we had the line of credit available, and then we had construction draws and impact fee revenues sort of coming together at the same time. In this particular case, I do think our pace of spending is going to exceed the pace of revenue. So I do believe we will need to use the line of credit in this case. I'm estimating about 10 to 12 million will be needed. And my estimate of when we'll be paying that back is within 3 to 4 years. Now, if we at some point decide to use other revenue to either pay off this debt or to shore up that construction draw from another source, like we could absolutely do that. So next year at this time, if we're looking at, do we have good capital revenue? Could we put 3 or 4 million into this project? We absolutely can do that. It's just when I write the purchase order, we need to have the ability to fund the full amount. So I can't contract with money I don't have. So this, I said, worked beautifully at Vieira Middle School, and so we can decide to invest other resources to avoid or lessen whatever amount of credit we will actually use. But sitting here today with no other funding source coming into this, that's about what I'm estimating that we will need. And just looking at the estimated cost of borrowing, somewhere in the $1 million to $1.5 million range, depending on how long it's out there, how long, and the revenue that we receive from impact fees. So that's kind of the big project that is going to be needing the line of credit. The West Side Elementary project, that one is on your agenda tonight with the construction contract, and we have enough cash on hand to fund that, so that one's paid for. Bayside Classroom Edition, we have the construction manager selection process is underway. Anticipate receiving the construction contract in December, looking at opening in August of '27. The South area impact fee revenues are pretty healthy. They're in the 3 to 4 million a quarter. And so just looking at it today, I think we're going to need a little bit of financing, but if growth continues to accelerate in the South Brevard area, then, and actually from Vieira, Barnes Boulevard South is this area. So if the pace of development continues, it is possible that we will not need financing for this project either. We have 14 million available that is net. We've already paid for West Side, so this is what's available for Bayside. So we only need a couple, 3, 4 quarters maybe to be able to fully fund this. So the timing of this is going to impact whether or not we need financing. And then the fourth project is Sunrise Elementary School. And we're still in the concept design phase. We've been working with the architect and the educational side of the house to try to make sure that we do this right, since this is our K-8 conversion school. And what we'll be doing in the project is adding classroom seats, but I want to make sure that we add the right classroom seats with the right infrastructure to support what's happening. Assumed an 18-month construction schedule. It's possible it could be faster. But again, the pace of construction draws and the pace of impact fees will dictate the degree of financing that we'll need. In this case, we're estimating about 6 to 8 million we would need, just looking at kind of the normal construction schedule, normal cadence of educational impact fee revenue, but that could change as well in either direction. So this one is kind of a smaller ask relative to the size of the ask on the separate day school. But we do intend to put all of these together into one line of credit if that's the approach that we would like to take. So with that, Mr. Ford, I want to introduce Mr. Ford with Ford & Associates, and Ms. Lisinski's team and I have been working with him, and he's got a few slides to go through regarding the line of credit. So you.
Test. Okay. Thank you all very much for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you. Financing for the new school, as Sue said, is going to be remarkably the same as we did in 2022 with a line of credit. At that time, excuse me, using a line of credit under a lease purchase structure, that Brevard Schools was the first place that had ever done that in Florida. Usually lines of credit are something that you do with pledged revenue sources like sales tax revenues or something of that nature. So that was a unique financing. There's a disclaimer here that says that this is estimated. Just a quick summary of your outstanding debt. I always try to include this in the pages. We are today down to $249 million in change of debt outstanding. That is down a little bit from the last time we spoke. We did, since that time, go through the 2025A refinancing of the 2015C COPs, and that generated, I believe I recall, about $4 million of savings for the school district. So things are moving in the correct direction. Okay. Looking back at Vieira Middle School in 2022, the line of credit that we executed was for a little over $30 million. The only draw that was made on that line of credit was for the closing costs, and it was necessary to pay them from the line because for tax purposes, we had to make some draw to lock it in for tax purposes. With questions, I can refer you to Jason Brett of Bryant Miller Olive. That's his bag. The district believed that it would have sufficient impact fees to pay for the school, but it did not have them on hand at the time you needed to let the contract. And there was always the possibility with a volatile revenue source like impact fees that the funds would be insufficient as construction progressed. Luckily, we never had to make an additional draw on the line, and your finance staff prior to the end of the fiscal year said, nope, we're done, project's done, we're closing it out. So they actually closed out the line prior to its stated maturity. So you saved a little bit of money in that method as well. The line of credit was at a variable interest rate. It was based on an index published by Bloomberg. A new line today would be based on a different index. Current projects, and again, this is a little bit redundant with what Ms. Hahn said. Separate day school, West Side, Sunrise, and Bayside. We have impact fees. Not sure if they will be available in whole or in part to pay for some of those schools. We do believe for the separate day school that draws will be necessary, and the line will allow us to pay it off over a short but still multi-year period, 3 to 5 years, depending upon how staff chooses to move forward with the line or how the board chooses to move forward with a line for that matter. Given the uncertain timing of your funding and the uncertain amount of exactly how much we will need, the line of credit is the logical solution to this problem. It makes more sense than borrowing a pot of money to pay for the whole school, not necessarily needing all of it, perhaps needing more than you borrow, and then paying that off at a fixed interest rate. So, again, back in 2022, there are two interest rates that accompany these lines of credit. The first is a rate on your undrawn balances. For the $30 million that PNC provided through the line, they actually have to lock up their reserves to be able to provide that. So they charge you an interest rate. At the time, it was 10 to 12 basis points, depending upon how much you ended up drawing. I believe during the entirety of the line, you paid 12 basis points. So 0.12%, that's a heck of an interest rate, but it was on money that you didn't borrow. So the rate on the drawn balances was variable, and it ranged from about 3.88% up to about 4.83%. Again, it's a variable index plus a credit spread. That would be exactly the same thing today, except we're in a different interest rate environment. As of last Friday, when I ran this, the rate on the undrawn balances we think would be higher than last time, largely because the school district didn't have to draw on it last time, and therefore the bank didn't make much money on the line. They probably want to do that this time around. So we will, of course, put this out to another competitive solicitation, but 15 to 30 basis points, I think, is a reasonable estimate for what they would charge you for locking up those reserves. And again, if we were talking about the interest rate, well, actually, I'm going to say yesterday, because this morning the markets rallied on us, I estimated a variable rate of between 3.95 and 4.05%. And that would be based on an index called SOFR, which is the Secured Overnight Financing Rate. So I will pause there because I think that's basically the last of my slides. I'll pause there and answer any questions to deal with the financing, but that's a brief overview.
Mr. Chair, I would love to jump in on this one. All right, the line of credit, I love this idea of doing the line of credit because honestly, it lowers our exposure to debt, and if we generate more money with taxes, obviously, then that goes there. Have any other districts taken on this financing mentality? Did we start anything as far as that goes? Like, are banks less likely to lend on a line of credit now at this point?
I don't think that they're less likely to lend on a line of credit. I think that that PNC may be less likely to give you I know that PNC would be less likely to give you the same pricing and the same terms that they did last time. But there are other banks that want to come in that want to do business with you. As a matter of fact, I know of one bank that participated in your underwriting pool. They were your senior manager, B of A Securities. They flat out told us, we would really like the opportunity to do the line of credit with you next time around. So there is appetite for that out there.
Okay. All right, I thank you, Sue. I think you and I talked about this in your office. I'm going, why don't we look at this instead of that? And that was a different idea, but it worked out in our advantage and obviously saved taxpayers a lot of money. And us being able to say we built a school virtually debt-free, I mean, that's a huge win for our district. So don't love that we have to open a line of credit. It's a safety net there. I would like us to obviously fund everything with the dollars that we have and don't spend money that is borrowed. That is a principle that I prefer to live by, but understand the necessity. So I thank you, Mr. Ford, for doing good work for us and looking for,
Thank you. My
for
pleasure.
creative ways for this financing.
I think everything she said was so eloquent. I looked at it.
So you did this all night.
Two for two. I just wanted to say thank you for clarifying something on this particular slide, because yesterday when I looked at it, the 12 and the 30 don't have a decimal in front of them, and I was like, wow, that's a wide range. So thank you for clarifying. I just had to go on my sheet and draw a little decimal, so it's 0.15 to 0.30. And
You know, between 300 and 400 push-ups, that is a wide range. It didn't occur to me when I wrote that. I'm going to have to, I
Thank
can't
you.
unsee that now. I have to go fix it.
That's all right, because 30% is a lot bigger than 0.3. No, I think this is great. You know, I can't take credit for the line of credit idea, but I remember the solution was as a result of, I know I pushed out there, let's borrow as little as possible, you know, and pay it off as quickly as possible. And you guys came up with a creative solution to do this. So I love the idea of being able to do it again. I question about the separate day school facility, because we're only getting under $1 million every quarter for that. Realistically, if we needed to, if we're having to borrow, what is it, 14 million
About 10
for
to
that
12.
project? I mean, that's going to be a lot longer than that 3 to 5 year period. So most likely, and we can only use impact fees in the area, right? So most likely that if we're going to find funding to pay off any debt we draw from that, it'll have to come from one of our other sources. Correct? Am I thinking about that correctly?
Yes, if we're going to pay it off earlier. When I looked at the 3 to 4 years, that included the time during construction where we're also accumulating impact fee revenue. So,
Right.
so the 3 to 4 years is kind of beyond the conclusion of construction. So I'm
Okay.
sorry I didn't clarify that. So,
Okay,
yeah.
so we could still be paying off
For sure.
separate day school after it's open.
Yes.
With that, as their impact fees are rolling in.
Yep.
Every time we have an impact fee report, there is a kind of an expiration date.
Yes.
And I'm assuming we use those first, but like for some of these projects that are down the road a little bit, are we
Yep.
in danger of losing any of those?
So we keep very close track of that. It's a 6-year period.
Okay,
So yes, like in the north, like this is good to be using those funds for this purpose.
okay.
And in
before
the
they
south, we're
expire.
good. Yep.
Okay, all right, good, thank you.
John, good? Yeah. All good.
All good.
Thank you all very much.
John, thank you. May I take my, thank you. Yep, thank you. Thanks, John. Okay, so the ministerial actions on this, we are going to work towards an RFQ process that will go out to the banking community. That will happen in the next week or so. And then once those proposals come in, we'll go through the normal process with procurement and anticipate being in front of the board on October 14th with the authorizing resolution. So that's the time frame, at least we're working towards on this. Okay, so talk through all of that. And then the next piece, yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Question, on the banks that you're going to send out the RFQ to,
Mm-hmm.
is that all banks in the area, or is it only banks that we've worked with in the past?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I believe that our procurement folks and Mr. Ford work on where that goes. I think it is like out on the open market as far as I know. But I don't know that for sure. I think that's the case.
Okay.
Okay.
I believe it's a general call, like it just goes out to anybody in the banking or financing industry, like an all call kind of thing.
Is that, like, we contact them, or we just post it?
I believe we post it, but we can have Sean Hines give you guys
Yep.
an update on how that works.
Yeah,
I know of a bank that might be interested, that's why I was asking.
I think it's both. And so if you do know of a bank, have them reach out to procurement and just tell them that they're interested in the line of credit RFQ, because that will be going out shortly.
All right, thank you.
And they can register on OpenGov too, kind of the same process in the construction side. Okay? Okay, so the next part of the briefing relates to the other part of the strategic facilities plan. At the time that WXY came in and presented several different options and opportunities that involved a number of different permutations, that was sort of moving towards how do we balance our enrollment. We have, some schools are under-enrolled, some schools are over-enrolled. We also have some very old schools that really should be retiring. They're at the end of their useful life, and how do we look at potentially retiring those schools and building something new that might serve a broader community? So a lot of permutations again. And what I want to talk about mostly today is that we've been working this summer on some of those options and looking at different ideas. So the staff has come up with some ideas. We are currently vetting them through cabinet because it may work from a facilities point of view, but it might totally not work from an educational point of view. So we really have some work to do to make sure that everybody who's got a dog in the fight, so to speak, looks at it from their particular lens, and we've covered all our bases. Some of these are big decisions. Mr. Thomas, you mentioned the Stone U Park decision. And what we'd like to do there is retire the old building, build a new building. What do we build back, right? And what elementary schools, high schools, middle schools are affected by that decision? How big is it? All of those questions come into play. And so I think that is a great example of one that really requires all of those lenses to make sure that what we're doing there is going to work best for the education of our students in that area of the community. But from a facilities perspective, retiring a very old building or retiring more than one very old building, yay, but we got to do it right because we only get one opportunity to put it back. Right? So where I think this is going from a timing perspective is once we get another round of cabinet review on these ideas, anticipate an initial work session with the board in September that we'll be back with maps and details and recommendations for you all to kind of think about and give us some direction. And then we move into the community engagement phase in October. Some of these things like the Stone project, that's a multi-year project. Some of them are, let's take care of this for school year 27. So we just need to make sure that we are implementing the solution that works best for that particular circumstance at this particular point in time. So they'll be all over the place relative to different solutions at different schools. So this is an excerpt from our policy and procedure regarding attendance boundary changes, because all of these ideas really move into the attendance boundary change arena. And typically what we do is through the summer and early fall is we vet ideas. We bring them to the board in the fall as kind of here's our concepts, go back and do some community engagement, and then eventually we come back before the board as an information agenda item, an action item to schedule the public hearing, and then we have the public hearing in January. That allows us to have enough time for all the other folks to plan for whatever changes need to happen in time for the start of the new school year. We also have done in the recent past some soft redistricting, so where we say, well, it's a good idea to make these changes, but we're going to allow families a year or so to get used to them, and they can go to the new school or the old school over a period of time. So you probably will see some of those options on some attendance boundary changes where we give folks a little bit more time to adjust to potential changes. So for this piece of the presentation, that's really it. I just wanted to go through the process so that you knew this was going to be coming your way a little bit later in the fall. So the next section is surtax and millage renewal. And this is kind of the fourth leg of all of this information that I'm throwing at you today. And so the sales tax and the millage both expire in this year. So November 26th, they are both up for renewal. these are the different parameters around which they were developed. The sales surtax, the first 2 terms were 6-year terms. The millage is in its first 4-year term. Millage is only 4 years. Surtax can be whatever the board decides. So we can make a different decision. The surtax is on the capital side, millage is on the operating side. And so this slide just kind of shows you how the voters felt about these 3 initiatives when they were on the ballot, and kind of gives you a sense of what folks were thinking at the time. The sales surtax is governed by Florida statute, primarily around expenditures on the capital side, and it's under the financing statute under discretionary sales taxes. In Brevard Public Schools, we defined our uses as 70% facility renewal, 15% technology, 15% security. It is by statute proportionally shared with charter schools. The legislature changed the formula a bit a few years ago, but we're right at about 14%. In doing projections looking forward, I think that will go up, but I think the pace of increase is probably going to slow down a bit, just because there are so many other educational options. It used to be BPS and charters, and now the legislature has broadened educational choice. And so I think the broader educational choices are impacting our growth, charter growth. So I think we're going to stay a bit more stable in terms of our relationship of enrollment to each other. Millage, very heavily invested in compensation and benefits, 16% in student programs and 4% in technology. This is also shared with the charter schools on a proportional basis, and it is collected locally with a surcharge imposed. So the big difference from our perspective too is that the sales tax is collected and dispersed monthly. So every month we get new revenue. The millage is primarily received in December. So it's kind of a one-time infusion of funds. It's same as our capital basically. It's a millage on your property tax bill. So all that revenue is received at about the same time. So it's a lot of work on the finance department's team to try to manage, an expenditure plan that is all year versus a revenue source that is one time. It's so with my side of the line, it's a little bit easier. So some of the things that I'm kind of thinking about as we're working towards developing a sales surtax renewal plan is all of that conversation at the first part of the presentation around capital. That, I think, in my mind, is playing into looking forward, like how much capital will we have available for some of those projects, and whether or not we can depend on that, or whether we think we might want to make sure that we can make sure like our operating side of the budget is okay. So I'm probably going to be doing some initial planning with a little more heavily invested in basic building system renewal on the facility side. It talked about the charter enrollment. Legislative actions, of course, can always make things a little bit different. Construction costs have been doing nothing but going up. And then the increasing number of district assets. So, as we are, for example, I talked about building pavilions at elementary schools that don't have them. As you build one, now we have another one that we need to maintain. Security, we've invested in a lot of security assets. Those are going to be coming up for renewal. So all of the assets that we have a lot, we all need to be thinking about making sure that we can renew those assets at the appropriate interval. I've been really proud, despite a few little glitches in our air conditioning, our chillers are in pretty good shape. Like we have an inventory, we know when they should be replaced. We're replacing them about when they should. Same thing with playgrounds. We've done a really good job of making assessments, and we know more or less what's next. Now, things happen, but we have good data, and I feel very comfortable building a good plan that is based on the assessment data that we have. And then as we did on the last surtax plan, we're really conservative on the revenue estimates and didn't overprogram. I don't want to put the district and myself in a position where we have overpromised projects and we can't deliver them because the revenue isn't there or the construction costs have gotten too high. So I want to try to do a very conservative plan, and that hopefully will allow us, like we've had with this plan, some window where the revenue is exceeding what we've anticipated and we can do additional projects. And you see those on your agenda all the time. We work that through the Citizens Oversight Committee process, and it's really worked really well. So really happy about that, and I want to kind of continue that philosophy. And then when we talk about adding more projects, I think this is an area where I want to expand the scope of uses for the surtax so that we could, for example, use surtax revenue to replace Stone Middle School or to supplement funding to replace Stone Middle School that may be coming from another source. Or the separate day school is another example. If this passes, we have additional resources that aren't programmed. We can use those resources for something like partial funding of the separate day school. So really trying to tie all these things together so that we have some flexibility in our financial resources that support facilities. So this is a slide that just kind of shows you an example of how I'll be looking at the surtax plan. So we get about $60 million, we meaning BPS, net charter school share, from sales tax revenue every year. Facility renewal, 70% of that. So 42 million sounds like a lot of money. That won't build Stone Middle School, right? And it will do a handful of roofs. It'll do some HVAC equipment, but you know, as I build the plan, I basically start with these systems, look at the assessment, see what I can get away with in terms of an annual expenditure, and then sort of see what's left. So looking at the building systems first, and then classroom renewal. I know we have some fire alarm renewal needs, and our plumbing is getting older. The problem with the plumbing is you can't see it, so you don't know it's a disaster until it's a disaster. And there's, you know, with the exception of testing the sewer lines, is not a really great way to find that out. So this is just kind of a sample of how we might approach the surtax detail plan development to just kind of show you where I'm going. And you will eventually see something that's got all of those pieces on it. So the preliminary recommendations for the sales surtax renewal is to retain the current distribution of 70, 15, and 15 with facility renewal, sales, security, and technology. We would like to consider extending the term. There's no limit to what you can do. If you are looking at financing or something like that, like a longer term is obviously better because you can bond it. But from our perspective, having a stable revenue source for a longer period of time allows us to do more programming and be more forward thinking and to pick up projects farther down the line. So I would like to consider a slightly longer term. So we're recommending consideration somewhere in the 10 to 15 year period. And then to expand the allowable uses to include replacement school facilities, new school facilities, and new ancillary facilities. So things like turf fields, pavilions, auditorium, you know, things like that. And I really struggle with whether auditorium is the proper plural or not. ChatGPT said either one was okay. Auditoria, auditoriums, but anyway, it's there. So just, you know, in the authorizing resolution, we would have a little broader capability of what we could spend our money on in BPS. These are all allowable under the statute, so it's not doing anything beyond what the statute allows, just expanding our uses.
If I could jump on that, though.
Sure.
Just so everybody keeps in mind, by changing what we have now, it requires OPAGA review. So that has to be factored into the timeline for approval because everything has to be back and done by the ballot cutoff.
I actually have the next several slides to cover that. So hang on.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question. Regarding the sales surtax.
Yes, sir.
Is there any research available to know, kind of get an idea what the voters would find acceptable? I know, just so we make sure we don't overextend our ask.
Yeah, that's a question, and I'd like to know that answer too. And we've been talking about how we might get that information. So I'm I'm not sure what, like, we can spend money on versus finding that out some other way. So we're wrestling with that question.
Some kind of polling or something?
Yeah, but that's not typically within our purview and our ability to spend money, so we might have to see if there's another way to get there. Okay. So as I mentioned, kind of focused on building system renewal, classroom renewal. I think I've been sending you all Tony Troisi's classroom renewal pictures from all the great work he's doing in our schools. We'd like to do more of that, and we still have 30-ish schools to go. So those are projects that are in the $2 million and change range for a full school. And so that's something I'd really like to start working on a little bit more earnestly over the next several years. And then we've got a lot of outdoor assets that need attention and/or assets we don't have that our schools would like to have. Technology, Mr. Cheatham's staff has developed a 10-year plan, so that is ready and good to go. Security plan, Mr. Wilson and I are working through that, and so we'll have a plan under development based on renewal of some of our security assets as well as some ideas on some new assets. So that'll be in the plan that we bring to you. On the millage side, talking to Mr. Dufresne, retaining the current distribution, and the MOUs are already in place with our bargaining units, so that doesn't require the same level of effort in terms of planning that the Surtax does, but we would like to bring those back to you concurrently. So these are the administrative actions that we propose coming up here in the next few months. I would very much like to bring resolutions to put the Surtax renewal and the millage renewal on the ballot in November at your September 9th school board meeting. So I'd like to, the resolutions are somewhat general in terms of their framework, so we'll have things like the term and the use, but it won't be, we're gonna put a chiller at this school in this year, it'll be 70% facility renewal type of framework, and it will have language that would allow us to expand the uses to new facilities and replacement facilities. And then we would transmit that to the county commission in October. And then once we adopt the resolution on our side, then we send it to APAGA, and they facilitate getting the audit done. That's at their expense. But what this is a performance audit, and it's actually pretty cool. This is the statute, and it tells you the types of things that are in the performance audit. And I actually looked up several that have been done for other districts over the last couple years, and they're really good audits. Like they're not gotcha audits. They're, you know, this is what we told the voters and this is what we did type of audits. And I feel like from our program, we would welcome that audit because I think we have done great work with our money. So I had called APAGA about 3-4 months ago and just asked, can we get this done now? And the answer was, you've got to do the resolution first. So if we can get the resolution done early, we can get the audit done early, and then we have to post it on our website, which we would do anyway, but you know, there's some ministerial actions there. Mr. Gibbs is correct that if we keep the surtax exactly the same, 6 years, same parameters, we don't need to go through the APAGA audit. But from where we're sitting, we're happy to go through that audit, and I think it would be beneficial to us to go through the audit as well as to expand the scope of the surtax. So either approach is fine with us, but that is something that has to be done. We have to do this at least 180 days before the referendum is on the ballot. And in my opinion, it would be good to get this all squared away well before the first of the year. So it's over at the county commission. APAGA can get going on their audit. So that's the audit piece. And then there will be a parallel community engagement piece. So as I'm developing the which chiller goes to which school and which year type of program details, we'll be meeting with the Citizens Oversight Committee, looking at a potential special meeting in October to kind of vet some of those ideas, talking to our school administrators, community groups, et cetera, and then formalizing the plan probably very early in the first of the year, if not before. So depending upon the community engagement and whether we need to make major shifts or minor shifts, we'll be back to you with a plan to adopt, hopefully early in the year. So that is the sales tax piece, and would like to hear some thoughts from the board on some of the pieces regarding the term and the use and that type of thing, so that we could draft a resolution that will meet your needs for September. And then that's it for the surtax.
Quick question to remind myself, when we had the surtax renewal in 2020, because we changed the scope of what we were covering, we did the OPAGA.
We did not.
We did not.
We
Okay,
di-
because we didn't change it.
We didn't change it
significantly.
at all. Like, we literally changed the date and sent it back.
Okay,
So,
okay.
yep.
I was thinking because we had added, like.
No, we didn't
classrooms.
change it. I did go to OPAGA and get their opinion that we did not need a review.
Okay.
That way we had it in our back pocket if there was any pushback.
Because we just changed very specific things, but it still fell under
Yeah,
what we.
yeah.
facility
Anything that
renewal.
wasn't in the ballot, we don't have to, like, yeah, a lot of our stuff that changed was we're going to do this instead of that.
Okay.
With the funds, but it wasn't a
But it's
part
still
of the ballot.
facility renewal.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I just want, okay. So when we get down to, like, one thing that was very helpful the last time, and I think this is when you're talking about developing the plan, was we had this big 237-page giant
Yes.
book that I could go to Discovery Elementary School and see what's going to be done in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know, COVID kind of messed up
Yep.
a bunch of that, but I've used that. Are we going to have something?
The giant book is coming back.
The giant books. Okay, I love
Yes.
that. Because if I have a new principal that's come since 2020 and they're wondering I'm like, hey, go to the district website, pull up this book. You know, there were some things that were delayed, but you should have an idea of what's coming. Or what's already been done. So I love that, because that was so detailed, not just for our schools, but for the community to know this is what's should be coming to my school. I'm in favor of the extended term. The first time it passed, the community really just wasn't ready to do more than 6 because there was a trust issue. It had failed, I think, in 2012,
So, yeah.
and then it passed in 2014. And so obviously the renewal, that was a number I already knew, the renewal was so much, it was significantly higher than the first time around, which I think is a testimony that, and even in COVID year, the renewal was in the COVID year, that the public saw the things that we'd done, and we were trustworthy in spending those dollars wisely. It had been put out there, hey, we might need to renew it one more time till we get the debt paid off, because we will have significantly all of our debt paid off that we have right now. You know, it's gone down from 400 million when I got on the board to now it's 250, but we still, you know, at 2032 we should be good. But I think this 10-year term is so important right now because we have also had meetings of the last few months of all this construction that we're going to need to do to deal with the growth, to deal with the aging buildings. And to be honest, even though I'll be long gone in 2032, I hate the idea that the future boards will go back into hundreds of millions of dollars worth of debt to do the next round of significant building that we need to do to replace aging buildings, to deal with continued growth, which Florida is not slowing down anytime soon. So I think this extended term will be helpful. My recommendation would be if we can get off the cycle of the county with the Indian River Lagoon sales tax, I would love that, because I think next year is, I mentioned it before, board, I want us to be standing side by side with the commission this coming year, so that it's not, hey, vote for our surtax, vote for our surtax. But our community has, I didn't really think when they got it in 2016 that our community would take a 10-year term, but they did. And so I think the extended term would be acceptable, but I would love to get off their cycle. So if we can make it a different,
Yeah.
yeah, so we're not doing that every 10 years together. That would be my one ask, but the rest of it looks fantastic. And just for our 3 newer board members, I will tell you, back in 2019, a poll was done because we were considering at the time what it would look like for the public, what would be the sentiment to do the sales surtax renewal in 2020 and do a millage at that time, to do the millage in 2020. We had an offsite. It was, we had the data brought to us, and to our surprise, the public at that time, actually there was very good support within our county to do 2 at once, because we couldn't lose the surtax. I mean, it was just so important. We didn't want to go out for a millage if we're going to lose the surtax. And so we were starting to move in that direction of asking the voters in 2020 potentially to have a millage, and then COVID happened, and there was no way, the board was not about to go out with all the hardships we were dealing with asking for a millage on top of the surtax, and we couldn't lose the surtax. So I just want you to know, even back then, the community has been in support of the district, and I think it goes a lot to the accountable way that we've had this money and used it and been able to show what we've done with it. So we can't presume what the community will do. I know that next year I will do what I did a couple years ago, which is to really communicate as clearly as possible why we need it, how we've used it. And I've talked to Dr. Rendell and GCR about we need to start getting the message out of what we've done with it and the good that it's done. But I think that the community will be in support once again of both of these initiatives.
I'm going to be good.
So that means it's my turn. Sue, you might be the only person I know who welcomes an audit of their department, and that's just a testimony to how trustworthy and how confident that you are that what we're doing is the right thing, that we're spending the money the correct way. And so for that, I cannot thank you enough. It's a relief for me to sit here and go, I trust you. I trust what you're doing in your department. I know you're doing a good job. And honestly, even from the time that I've been on the board, I see such drastic differences in our facilities, things that are happening around there that I'm going, oh, yay. I know when this sales surtax first passed, it was kind of, you were putting out the fire that was burning the hottest at that moment. And then right now we're at a place where, okay, a lot of those fires have been put out, but there's still continual maintenance, and we still have older schools and all of that. So I am in support of, let's go ahead and change it. Let's have that audit, because I too agree. If there's something that substantiates that we are doing what is correct with these dollars, and it also gives a message to the community that this is a good investment that you are making in BPS. So I like the idea of the extended term. I love Ms. Campbell's idea of getting off of the lagoon tax cycle. I think that's a wise move from our end as well. And yeah, I look forward to seeing that. It also helps, with the sales surtax, that burden is spread amongst not just Brevard County residents, but we have a huge tourism industry. And so that captures some dollars from our tourism industry that goes right back into our school system. And I think that's a huge win for us as well. So thank you for all you do. You are the best, and we appreciate you. Thank you.
I forgot one thing that you were asking for input on, and as far as the scope, I would support us expanding the scope of this tax to include, if we needed it, construction
Okay, thank you.
of new facilities.
Okay, thanks.
So, love the new construction.
Comment after
I
you.
do think with the surtax, I hear what everybody's saying about the extended time, it makes sense. But in 2032, I think is the first break, or is it when is the reduction in the overall?
I think it's 32 and 36. Is that right, Cindy? The debt retirement is 32 is about half, and 36. Yep.
If we go 10, will be,
Yeah.
the 36 would be 10 years, and it would be that both are done.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
I do like to make one comment. I know how critical the surtax and the millage are to the operations. And I know what it was like in Brevard Public Schools before those were around. And things were getting pretty dilapidated. So, and I've seen some of the improvements and things that have gone on just since I've been on the board here. And Ms. Campbell asked me what, as far as to comment on my thoughts on the duration. And I would just go back to what I had said about getting a poll done, however that's going to happen, to make sure that we want to make sure we can get as long as possible, but we certainly don't want to, put something out that the voters find that they're not happy with, and we don't get anything. So, and I know everybody here on the board is aware of it, and I think we're all doing it, but we can't stress to the public enough how critical this is to the lifeblood of our district. If we didn't have one or both of these, we'd be, in critical shape.
Agreed.
Yeah, I echo most of that, so I agree with expanding it. I agree with the expansion of the time. I like how Matt said maybe about the time where our debt's gonna move
Okay.
on, would be a really good, be a good selling point on that as well, because it has purpose, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you know.
We'll take a look
our
at
support.
the other parameter is the renewal has to be during a general election, so we've got to look at the timing of
Mm-hmm.
that, and we can't go back to the voters too early. There's some, I think it's a 4-year time, so somewhere in there, we'll figure out the right size. We'll check with the county and come back with a recommendation on that.
Oh, great.
That's a good point, because there is a possibility of going 2 years before the expiration.
Correct.
Is what you're
Right.
saying. So like if we did it 10 years out, so it
Right.
would coincide with 2036,
Right.
with the debt fall off, we could go out to the voters potentially in 2034.
Right. So
for the
that, we've got
renewal,
to,
and then we wouldn't be on the same ballot as the
Yeah.
lagoon.
Right, right. Okay.
yeah, so we'll kind of map all that out, and
Okay.
I'll make
Just wanna
sure
make sure, yeah.
Mr. Gibbs is in the mix on that. So thanks.
Yeah, great job.
Okay. And then just to kind of summarize, you'll be seeing a lot of me over the next several months. These are all the actions that were part of this presentation. So there's a lot of things coming your way up, in September and October. So I appreciate your time, and thank you all. I know this is not like the most exciting thing to listen to. So just thank you, and thank you for always being so receptive to all of our work. So appreciate it very much. Thanks.
No, thank you, Sue.
Mr. Chair, before we leave this presentation, the topics, Mrs. Wright did mention audit, and I wanted the board to be aware that, the RSM audit, they audited both the sales surtax and the millage in the last audit cycle, and those are both going to be on the list again this year. So they will be auditing both of these additional revenue sources. Again, evidence for us to demonstrate to the voters that we are spending the taxpayers' dollars the way we said we were going to spend them. So they're both on the list.
That's good.
Quick, one of the things that I asked about yesterday in my one-on-one with Sue that I think that was really exciting is, there's the new separate day school. It's one of those things like we can't build it fast enough, but the possibility that because we already have a facility, we don't have to line that up necessarily with the school year, that when it's done, if it gets done in November, gets done in February, we could go ahead and move kids in. So thank you for, I think that 14-month time frame you put out for us, that is exciting, that we don't have to wait, that we can go ahead and move, because it's a much needed facility. It will allow us to expand even services to more students who really need to be in that kind of receiving those services. So I just wanted to bring that out, that's going to be a good possibility for us to transition even mid-year, unless it's the last 3 days of school, you said. So.
They'll still want to move in.
Should. Okay. Just quick. All right. Again, thank you, Sue. Yes. All right, so next up is the general counsel evaluation. At this time, we will adjourn the meeting and go to the superintendent's
Recess.
conference room. Or recess the meeting. Recess. It says adjourn.
Oh, oops. During two.
Aye.